Hey everyone, it's Tuesday. We're flying casual. I'm James Azile, joined along with Andrew Fantasia. And the reason we are flying casual today is because if you have seen this week's episode of I Rebel, Andrew and I talk about Rebels, Star Wars Rebels, and the third season of Rebels. We just started the third season of Rebels, which is pretty exciting. But in it, Andrew, you brought up, you commented on Mortis and whether or not we will see Mortis going forward. And there's been some comments in the comments section regarding Mortis, and we've gotten some emails and whatnot. And you actually sent me a message yesterday. I won't read it. I'll let you just say it. And I said we need to do this show. And you sent it very late at night because you were a night owl because you write. So anyway, first go into what your text was to me, and then explain what in the F Mortis is for those people that are like, what is a Mortis? Because, maybe they didn't watch the Clone Wars, or maybe they did. They're just more confused than they were before.
Yeah, I think Dave Filoni's the only man on the planet who could really answer that question with any kind of clarity. Essentially, what I messaged to James was an idea that just sort of, I don't even know if I was watching an episode of our show or where it came from, but it just sort of hit me. I was like, okay, we have these three really powerful Force users in Rebels right now. We have Kanan, we have Ezra, and we have Ahsoka. And we need to get rid of them one way or another before the events of like Empire and Jedi start taking place, right? So what I sort of thought was maybe they become the new trio of Force beings who live on Mortis. I thought maybe Kanan Jarrus will become the new father, Ezra will become the new son, and Ahsoka will become the new daughter. And if you have no idea what I'm talking about, join the club, first of all, because Mortis is not easy to describe. Okay, I'm going to describe what I thought Mortis was, and then James, you describe what you thought it was, because it is the kind of thing that is very open to interpretation. And then, so maybe, two heads are better than one in this case. Then, of course, all of y'all chime in and talk about maybe what you think Mortis was, and at least one of us has to probably be on the right track. So Mortis was a trilogy of episodes from the Clone Wars. I think it was season 3, where Obi-Wan, Anakin, and Ahsoka receive a distress signal, a Jedi-specific distress signal coming from an unknown region of space. But the signal is very old, ancient, actually. Like it's an ancient Old Republic distress signal, and they're like, oh, who set this off? So they meet up. They tell Rex where they're going. They say, meet us here. We're going to this place. And they go and they find this. I hesitate to even call it a planet, but they find this thing called Mortis, this place. And they end up sort of crash landing there. And Mortis is this world where there are no rules of logic. Day turns to night, and the sky is different colors, and things are never where they were. So like you could look at a forest and be like, oh, there's a forest over there, and then you turn your back on it, and when you turn around again, there's no forest there. Now it's like an ocean. So it's almost like dreamlike, like how in a dream everything is always in flux. And there are three beings living on Mortis. I don't even think they're humans because they're exceptionally tall and they're very like ethereal looking. But there's an old man called Father, and then there's a young man and a young woman called Son and Daughter. And the son represents, he's sort of the embodiment of the dark side of the Force. The daughter is an embodiment of the light side, and the father is he's all gray, even his skin is gray, and he's very, he's always middle ground. So I'm assuming he is the balance between the two sides of the Force. And throughout this trilogy of episodes, the three of these beings are just messing with Anakin and Obi-Wan and Ahsoka, messing with their heads, getting under their skin, trying to manipulate them to the point where Ahsoka even dies in this episode. And the daughter sacrifices her own energy, her own life, to bring Ahsoka back from death. James, what was, before we go any further, what was your take on Mortis?
Mortis, really the first few times I saw it really, really confused me. Because when I first started watching the Clone Wars, I was very much a casual viewer of the Clone Wars. And when you just dive headfirst into Mortis, you kind of go, where's Luke? And I know Luke obviously is around at that time, but what I mean by Luke is where's the simplicity of Star Wars? But also, what was great about Clone Wars is they didn't have to, is that they could go that extra mile and be kind of zany like this and give us this weird backstory into the lore of which enhances the simplicity of the original trilogy. But yeah, I was very confused. But I think like you, I didn't really know what to to make of it, and I still struggle at thinking of it. And how do you bring Mortis into the forefront again? Because obviously it's canon now, and all canon junkies out there will try to speculate what does that mean going forward. And the whole thing was about how they found out that Anakin was going to bring balance to the Force between the son and daughter, right? Was that was like the thing there? If I remember correctly, for Mortis.
The father wanted Anakin to replace him.
Yeah.
He was basically testing Anakin to be his protege, and the father was aware of the prophecy. He sort of looked at Anakin and he's like, "Oh, you're the one. You're the one who's going to bring balance." And he kept trying to sway Anakin to stepping into his shoes by keeping the son and the daughter in check and keeping them from, because apparently if either of them ever escaped or if one of them died and one of them lived, that imbalance would mess up the galaxy. That's what's implied by what the father said.
And the arc ends though with all three of them being vanquished. They're all dead by the end of this arc. Correct?
Yeah, all three of them die. The son is trying very hard to get off Mortis. He's trying to leave. And the father keeps warning, our three heroes, like, if he leaves, if he gets out there, that's bad news bears. You don't want that to happen. He's going to mess up some stuff. There's going to be graffiti everywhere. It's not cool. So they end this trio of episodes with those three beings all being dead. And apparently that in itself creates a balance because everything's okay. And, Anakin and Obi-Wan and Ahsoka, they leave and everything's fine. But now there is this world with a vacuum. And that got me thinking, okay, so we have three powerful Force users who don't exist anymore, but they sort of held this place together. And now in Rebels, we have three powerful Force users, also one woman and two men, just like before, who need to be, they need to be dealt with before this series is over. We need to understand why they're not around anymore. And that got me thinking, Mortis was, I was reading up on it, apparently it was a creation, not of Filoni, but of George himself. George Lucas kind of came up with this idea and pitched it to Filoni, and they went from there. But since it, originated in Clone Wars, which was Filoni's baby, I'm thinking that's another good loose end that could be tied up with Rebels ending. So that kind of got my gears turning. I'm thinking, okay, so somehow, I don't know how, when, but somehow these three are tasked with keeping Mortis in check again. The only problem is I don't know, nobody really knows the nature of those three that were there before. They're just called Force beings. Like that, if you try to Wikipedia, whatever, if you're looking up Mortis, that's all the info that you really get on them is they're ancient Force beings who are not quite human, and they're basically godlike. And the whole story in those episodes is so allegorical. It almost feels like a Bible parable. It almost feels like something that's not meant to be taken at face value, but meant to be taken on a spiritual value or on just a logical value. So there's so many different ways that those episodes could be interpreted that I don't think any theory regarding Mortis could be considered a solid theory at this point. So what I texted you was just sort of a stab in the dark. But what do you think, James, of this idea that Mortis could be sort of this three thrones of power that kind of always need to have somebody in them to keep the Force in check.
I can totally get behind that because I mean, you introduce Mortis and you make it such a. I mean, everyone talks about the Mortis arc because it is so mucked up. I think like it's just it's such a thing. But yeah, that makes so much sense. When like I never thought of it until you brought it up on the show last week, and then and then the text really kind of exploded in my head. Like that makes a lot of sense. And if you're going to get rid of these characters and not kill them off because you don't want to kill them off or you don't feel they need to be killed off, because let's be honest, as much as they have to get rid of Kanan and Ezra and Ahsoka, if they haven't already, I mean, Ahsoka might already be there for all we know. She might already be there.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't feel like you need to go that far, this is a perfect way that is already established in your canon, in your lore. You already have this out for them, and like you said, it's vacant, and you can make it that there always needs to be three there because that's the way it is. And if you do that, then you can always, and then 20 years down the road, you can have whatever your story is. Then you can return to them, and maybe they're having friction now because of something. Because there always also has to be friction and whatnot. I really like that idea. I just want to read this quote to you. It's from Hera Syndulla, and it's from the season 4 trailer of Rebels. I just want to say this right here, and I want you to pay attention to the last sentence, okay? So she says in the trailer, it was a simple story about a boy who was lost and a girl who was broken. So we'd assume it's Ezra and Sabine in this conversation. They fought alongside a survivor, a war veteran, and a fallen knight. I led them into battle against an evil so terrible it tried to black out the stars. We fought for each other. We fought for those who could not, but we never imagined it would end like this. That last sentence, we never imagined it would end like this, could be. When I hear this, I think this is going to be them going into battle, possibly the Battle of Scarif or something like that. But when you bring up the Mortis, could it possibly even mean that she's referring to, she has such a huge role in that, and Ezra and Kanan, more than Ahsoka, for her anyway, have such a greater meaning to the universe that they are called out there. And maybe she could be referring to this larger than what we are thinking it could be.
Yeah, that makes sense. Hera's a very down-to-earth kind of woman. She's like Han Solo. She knows that the Force may exist, and before she met Kanan, who knows what she believed, but she's not really in tune spiritually with any of that stuff that's going on. So she could be completely floored when this stuff starts coming to the forefront of things. And looking back at those three things that used to live on Mortis, they all share something in common with these three characters who I'm theorizing might replace them. The son was, in essence, a conduit for the dark side, and of those three characters, Ezra is the one who has been filled the most and tempted the most by the dark side. The daughter already has a connection to Ahsoka because she literally gave her life force to bring Ahsoka back from the dead, so that connection already exists very clearly. And the father was a solid neutral rock in the middle of it all who kept them in check. And Kanan Jarrus spent all of season 3 speaking and partially training with possibly the most neutral thing in the galaxy, the Bendu. So there's all these little avenues that can connect these seemingly unrelated characters. And the Bendu is definitely one of those mysterious Force things introduced in these cartoons that doesn't really have a clear answer yet, which, again, perfect segue to Mortis. Mortis, we don't have a clear answer. Bendu, we don't have a clear answer. They are just a deep pocket of this mystical realm that is the Force. And, for better or for worse, the show is going to end. We have to deal with what that means for these characters we've come to love. Like you said, maybe Disney doesn't want to kill them. Maybe Disney knows these are popular people. Why why make our fans see them die? Who knows what their logic is, but that through line exists. That connecting line exists for all three of them. So it does, even though I don't understand Mortis, it makes sense from a logical standpoint. That's how I see it right now.
And you know what? If you look at the first 9 episodes of this upcoming season, the first 4 episodes are going to be aired as parts 1 and 2, and then parts 3 and then 3 and 4 are in the name of the. So it goes Star Wars Heroes of Mandalore, part 1 and 2. They both air on the same night, and episodes 3 and 4 air on October 23rd, the same night. And the first 9 episodes end November 13th, 2017, and then we get a break until 2018, where there's no date for their return yet. But the last episode is Rebel Assault. Episode 9 is Rebel Assault, November 13th, 2017, which I still kind of feel like this is the Rogue One episode. This is, either right or this ends at Rogue One. We already know the outcome of Rogue One. We don't know for these characters, but so, this is what it tells me here. And then when they come back, they have episode 10 through 16 to clean up the mess of Rogue One, I suppose, and then deal with these characters that have survived Rogue One, because we don't know. I mean, they might, some of them, Zeb, Callus, one of them, I think, Callus might go on Scarif. We don't know. So they have episodes 10 to 16, and if you're going to go back to Mortis, you're going to need time to reacquaint the viewer with Mortis, and the characters need to know what Mortis is. And then if you're going to leave them there, you're going to need time for them to adjust to not just for them, but for us to see them adjust to it and understand it and accept it. And then you're going to need a goodbye if they're going to do it. And look, you got 7 episodes right there to do that whole thing. I mean, obviously, this is all speculation, like you said, based on a text message that Andrew Fantasia said. So if he's completely wrong, this whole thing is Andrew Fantasia's fault. But look, you've got a lot. You've got 7 episodes. You have half a season essentially to end the show. If that's Rebel Assault is the Rogue One episode.
Yeah, and the title definitely makes it sound like it is. And like we said during Rebels last time too, during I Rebel, we don't want to get Ahsoka back just to see her die if it's only for like 1 or 2 episodes. If she's going to die, I want to spend as much time with her as possible so that when she's gone, I feel her absence. So there you go. There's 7 whole episodes to kind of bring her back into the fold, make her part of the team again, and then we feel her absence. Now, if she's going to... Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to say, she, like you said, she already has that connection. And she already had something. She already had her confrontation with Vader. And the walls caved in on her. And we kind of see that silhouette. And it hinted at something. But what if you're right? What if she's already set her place over there? And she's the one, she has to call to Kanan and Ezra.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Like, because she has died on Mortis before. So if she had like a near death, like almost fatal injury after that temple caved in on her, she might have, for all we know, she might have had a vision where she woke up on Mortis and is just like, oh my God, I'm back here, and learned something about that place or about how it works. And that in turn set her on this path where she's like, okay, I am now the light side avatar in Mortis, but from what I know from being here before is you can't just have one of these avatars. You need all 3, otherwise there's an imbalance and that could wreck some stuff. So I got to get these 2 guys over here now to help me sort this out and keep the scales from tipping. Boom.
Yep. The question I'm having is, do you try to connect that to, to what's going on in Star Wars now, or do you just leave it be? I would just leave it be. I think it makes sense to just leave it be. Don't worry about it. Have that as the rule. The thing is, what's the purpose of those 3 on Mortis? What is their ultimate purpose if we're not seeing it at the forefront in the films and whatnot? That's my. I mean, I love the idea. Don't get me wrong. My question is, she's like, okay, we need these three, or there's no balance to the Force. Does that happen when Return of the Jedi is happening, like side by side with that moment? And then what happens when the first? Well, there's no Sith, so I guess a lot of questions on that one for me. I love the idea though. You're really selling me on this one.
Yeah, and it's such a heady thing that you're to, but I think if we can at least see some more from Story Group about this place or about the Bendu or any of these big question marks, then at least that more information is always good. And at least it kind of tells us that this is, in a way, important. Because like you said, if they're going to create this game-changing trio of episodes where there's essentially Force gods living in another dimension, and one of our main characters literally dies and is brought back by this god, if you're going to have a whole storyline like that, and then A, never call back to it again, and B, never have it, give us ramifications and stakes in the main story that we are following of Rebellion and Empire, then you just kind of wasted everybody's time. And I think they're smarter than that. I think we got to give them more credit than that. So if they were just making filler back then in Clone Wars for the sake of having episodes, then I think they could have, just filled that with an episode about Cad Bane or something. So I think that they very specifically gave us that story because it is important. And like I brought up before on the show, is just okay, so if you gave us that and it is important, you better tell us why, or at least give us a stronger reason that hints to why, if you want to be ambiguous about it, because it sounds like they do. It sounds like Filoni doesn't want to give us a clear cut.
Which I think actually is smart because, that old saying, less is more. And that's something that I firmly believe in. And look how many times we've seen something that's you're telling me too much now. A little bit of secrecy is fine, but you need to know a little bit, obviously.
Yeah, I don't want a whole episode that's like Jupiter Ascending where it's 2 hours of exposition. Just give me something that kind of tells me A, Mortis is pretty much this, and B, it's important because of pretty much this. And I'll be satisfied. Oh. As long as it's not as long as those episodes weren't a waste of our time and a waste of the writer's time and the actor's time, because then it's why did they even make them? But like I said, it's just a crazy theory. They just came to me. I don't know. Maybe I'm probably talking out of my ass. I'm probably very wrong. Who knows? But it fits. We got 3 Force users who are pretty skilled Force users, and we need to do something with them before this season ends. My money's on Mortis.
Yeah, you know what? When we were talking about it on I Rebel last week, my money was definitely not on Mortis whatsoever. I thought they were going to leave that be. But yeah, the more I think about it, the more you talk about it, the more you need to find a way to get rid of these characters in a satisfying manner. It needs to be, I think, the Clone Wars, look, Disney bought Star Wars at Lucasfilm, and they were like, okay, we're done with the Clone Wars. And Filoni's like, oh, that sucks. But he didn't get. He said at Celebration, he's like, I know what it's like to not get to finish something. He gets to finish his story. So they're going to need closure on the characters. I have no idea what that closure is. Obviously, we know that Rogue One is going to play a huge part of it, but we don't know what's going to happen with any of the main characters whatsoever. And I think if you're going to do something with them in a satisfying manner that keeps them alive and explains why, and I think I bring this up every single time we do a show about anything, why Yoda doesn't acknowledge any of those 3's existence to Luke Skywalker, I think this is a great out for you. You have an out path already paved for it, especially with everything that you just brought up. I think it makes complete sense, if not, with the exception of the fact that, like we said 20 minutes ago, it is confusing as hell. Mortis is confusing. And so you've gone from the Clone Wars, which, is like an adult cartoon show, to now a children's show. So that is the only obstacle I see for them bringing Mortis back into the fold.
Yeah, it's confusing, but like you said, it's gift wrapped for them. There's the ties are there. I mean, I can't stress enough how important it is that Ahsoka died in this place, and basically a god brought her back. Like if that happened to you, you wouldn't. It's not like you would never mention again. I think every person you meet would be like, "Hi, my name is James. I died once." FYI, funny story. Like I think that's not something that she's gonna just forget about and never bring up. So it's there. It's part of her. It's part of the world. It's part of Filoni's world. So I don't see any reason why they wouldn't bring it back at this point.
Yeah, that's exactly how I have to feel on this whole thing. You have it, like you said, it's there for you. Use it. Like just it almost makes too much sense. But at the same time, we should also point out the fact that we have no idea what their plan is for any of these characters or the show ending whatsoever. I mean, who knows? Maybe the next series is called Mortis.
Oh God.
And it's just all it is a bunch of really, really mucked up dream sequence things. Like, oh, look at the trees, the mountains, the earth. It'd be great. It'd be awesome. No, the next series is called Wild Space. It's actually going to be Dex's drivers, dime throughs, and dashes or whatever. That's my. That's my. I just want more Dex. Dex is actually the father. Right now. Well, this was good. So, anything else you want to bring up on this point? Are you good?
I think right now I'm good. We got to play it by ear. We got to see what Rebel season 4 has in store. But my money was not, I didn't have a safe bet. I wasn't thinking red or black before, but now I think I know where my safest bet is in terms of what's going to happen, at least to these three characters.
Kanan becomes blue leader and dies on Scarif.
Oh, no.
No. Okay, right before we leave, what's going to happen to Callus? Is he making it past Rogue One?
Maybe, but I think he and Zeb are going to go out in a blaze of glory.
Well,
they're going to,
together, yeah.
Yeah, they're going to have their backs against each other, and there's going to be something coming at them, and they're going to be like, let's do this as a team, and then they like give each other props, and they just go headfirst in the battle, and they never come back.
I would like it if, for whatever reason, Hera has to do something, and she entrusts Zeb and Callus with the Ghost, and all three of them go down together. That is way too morbid, but I think it would be very touching if they went, and then Hera's kind of alone because Kanan and Ezra are off, and Mortis and Sabine is ruling Mandalore, and Chopper is he's with C-3PO and R2-D2, and Hera's just alone, and her ship is gone, and Zeb and Callus go down with it. Would be touching, if not wrong, but it won't happen like that. I don't think whatsoever.
Probably not. Who knows?
But let us know what you guys think in the comments below. Give us a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. I should have said that off the top. Andrew, where can everybody find you at?
You can find me on Facebook, Andrew Fantasia, and you can find me on Mortis doing confusing things and having visions.
Yeah. You can follow me at Twitter, Instagram, and PS4 at Petsafina. So, guys, thanks a lot for watching. We'll be back with episode 62 of the Rebel Scum podcast later this week. Andrew may or may not show up on that one with Braga and myself. And then Vote of No Confidence will be training this week as well. I hope if we can figure out this Skype thing and OBS working at all. All right, Andrew, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
All right, and may the force of others be with you.
Always.
Hey, scumbags. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up on our video. As always, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Rebel Scum Podcast, for all the latest videos.